I've been working on Toyota and Lexus vehicles for 19 years. And about 6 years ago, I learned something at a Toyota assembly plant in Kentucky that completely changed how I understood these cars. I was touring the facility, looking at quality control procedures when I noticed something strange. The workers who build these vehicles, the people who literally bolt together Camrys and Highlanders every single day, are explicitly prohibited from doing one specific thing to their own Toyotas. They cannot skip the factory recommended maintenance intervals that are listed in the Japanese Market Owner's Manual, not the American one, the Japanese one, and the reason why is absolutely fascinating. The plant supervisor told me something I'll never forget. He said in Japan, Toyota doesn't just build cars to run, they build them to last indefinitely if maintained correctly. But here's what makes this wild. The maintenance schedule that Toyota prints in American owners' manuals is completely different from what they print in Japan. Same exact car, different service intervals. And the workers at Toyota factories in both countries are trained to follow the Japanese schedule, regardless of where they live. When I asked why, the answer was simple. Toyota knows exactly how long every component will last under specific maintenance conditions. They've engineered these vehicles down to the molecular level, and they know that if you follow the Japanese intervals, the car will outlast the original owner, the second owner, and probably the third. But if you follow the American intervals, you'll need expensive repairs right around the time the warranty expires. That's not an accident, that's a business model. If you want your Toyota or Lexus to make it past 300,000 miles without major repairs, hit subscribe right now. I break down exactly what the factory engineers know that dealerships will never tell you. Here's what most people don't understand. American maintenance intervals aren't designed by the engineers who build the cars. They're designed by the business teams who sell them. Longer intervals sound better in marketing. 10,000-mile oil changes sound more convenient than 5,000-mile oil changes. Lifetime transmission fluid sounds better than service every 30,000 miles. But convenience and longevity are not the same thing. In Japan, Toyota prints maintenance schedules based on component preservation. The goal is to keep every single part in near original condition for as long as physically possible. In America, they print schedules based on acceptable degradation. The goal is to keep the car running until the warranty ends, then let the repair cycle begin. Both approaches work. They just work for different people. One works for you, one works for the dealership's service department. Let me walk you through exactly what Toyota factory workers are required to do with their own vehicles, and what you've probably been skipping without even knowing it. In the United States, most Toyota owners change their oil every 10,000 miles. That's what the maintenance reminder light says. That's what the dealer recommends. In Japan, that interval doesn't exist. Toyota factory workers are trained to change oil every 5,000 miles, no exceptions. And if you use conventional oil, that drops to 3,000. I know what you're thinking. Oil technology has improved. Synthetics last longer. That's true. But here's what the engineers know that the marketing team doesn't put in the brochure. Oil doesn't just lubricate. It suspends contaminants. After 5,000 miles, even the best synthetic is carrying enough metal particles, carbon deposits, and combustion byproducts that it stops protecting and starts circulating abrasive material. I've torn apart engines with 70,000 miles that followed the 10,000-mile interval. The valve covers had visible sludge. The piston rings showed scoring. The oil passages were narrowed. Then I've torn apart engines with 200,000 miles that followed the 5,000-mile schedule. They looked almost new inside. Oil is $35, engines are $6,000, the math is simple. Toyota dealerships don't push the shorter interval because they make more money on engine repairs than they do on oil changes. A 5,000-mile interval means you're spending $200 a year on oil. A 10,000-mile interval means you're spending $4,000 on an engine replacement at 150,000 miles. One of those is better for you. One is better for the dealership's profit margin. Factory workers know which one keeps the car running. So they ignore the American manual and follow the Japanese one. Number 2, transmission fluid. In the US, Toyota labels most of their automatic transmission fluid as lifetime. You'll see it right in the owner's manual. No service required. In Japan, they don't even print that phrase. It doesn't exist. Toyota factory workers change their transmission fluid every 30,000 miles. Not a flush, a drain and fill, and they only use genuine Toyota WS fluid, never universal ATF. Here's why that matters. Transmission fluid operates under extreme pressure and heat. It doesn't just lubricate gears. It engages clutches, controls shift timing, and transfers hydraulic force. After 30,000 miles, the fluid starts breaking down. The additives that prevent foaming and oxidation degrade. Metal particles from normal clutch wear start circulating. The fluid gets darker, thicker, and less effective. When that happens, shift quality drops. The transmission starts slipping. And eventually, the clutch packs burn out. I've rebuilt transmissions with 120,000 miles that never had a fluid change. The fluid came out black. The filter was clogged. The valve body was scored. Then I've inspected transmissions with 300,000 miles where the owner did a drain and fill every 30,000. The fluid still looked red. The clutches still had material left. The shifts were smooth. A drain and fill costs $150. A transmission replacement costs $5,000. Toyota knows this. The engineers who design these transmissions spec the 30,000-mile interval in every internal document, but the American marketing team calls it lifetime because it sounds premium. Factory workers ignore that. They change it at 30,000, and their transmissions outlast their cars. Here's what nobody tells you. The lifetime fluid label isn't based on how long the fluid lasts, it's based on how long the warranty lasts. Toyota warranties most transmissions for 60,000 miles. If the fluid can survive 60,000 miles without catastrophic failure, they can legally call it lifetime. What happens at 70,000 or 100,000 or 150,000 is your problem, not theirs. Factory workers know that, so they don't wait. Number 3, coolant. Most Toyota owners change coolant when it turns brown. That's the visible signal that something's wrong. Factory workers change it every 50,000 miles regardless of color, because by the time coolant looks bad, the damage is already done. Coolant doesn't just prevent overheating. It contains corrosion inhibitors that protect the engine block, the cylinder head, the water pump, and the heater core from rust and electrolysis. Those inhibitors break down over time. After 50,000 miles, the coolant is still cooling, but it's no longer protecting. The aluminum components start corroding from the inside. The water pump seals start degrading. You don't see it until the head gasket blows or the water pump fails, and by then, you're looking at a $1,500 repair. I've seen Camry engines with 100,000 miles and original coolant. The radiator had visible corrosion. The heater core was leaking. The thermostat housing was pitted. Then I've seen Lexus engines with 250,000 miles and coolant changed every 50,000. Everything looked factory fresh. A coolant change costs $120. A head gasket replacement costs $2,000. Factory workers do the math. They change it at 50,000. And their engines don't overheat. Toyota dealerships don't promote this interval because it's not required for warranty compliance. They only recommend what keeps the car running until the warranty ends. After that, repairs are profit. Factory workers don't care about dealership profit. They care about not replacing head gaskets, so they follow the Japanese interval. Number 4, brake fluid. In America, most Toyota owners never change brake fluid unless there's a problem. It's not on the maintenance reminder. It's not in the quick service menu. In Japan, it's mandatory every 3 years. Toyota factory workers won't go past 36 months. Here's why. Brake fluid is hygroscopic. It absorbs moisture from the air. Over time, water content increases. That lowers the boiling point. When you brake hard going down a mountain or in stop-and-go traffic, the fluid heats up. If there's enough water in it, it boils. When brake fluid boils, it creates vapor. Vapor compresses. Liquid doesn't. So your brake pedal goes to the floor. That's called vapor lock, and it means you have no brakes. Even if you never experience vapor lock, the moisture in old brake fluid corrodes the master cylinder, the ABS module, and the calipers from the inside. I've replaced ABS modules on Highlanders with 80,000 miles and original brake fluid. The internals were rusted. The valves were stuck. A new module cost $1,200. Then I've serviced Lexus vehicles with 200,000 miles and brake fluid changed every 3 years. The system was clean. No corrosion, no failures. A brake fluid flush costs $90. An ABS module costs $1,200. Factory workers know which one makes sense, so they change it every 3 years without fail. Dealerships don't push brake fluid service because there's no warning light. There's no visible symptom until something fails. And when it fails, it's a high-margin repair. Factory workers don't wait for the failure, they prevent it. Number 5, cabin air filter and engine air filter. Most people change these when the dealer points them out during an oil change. Factory workers change the cabin filter every 15,000 miles and the engine filter every 30,000 on schedule whether it looks dirty or not. Here's what that prevents. A clogged cabin filter doesn't just reduce airflow. It forces the blower motor to work harder. That burns out the motor. A new blower motor costs $400. A cabin air filter costs $18. A clogged engine air filter reduces airflow to the engine, which throws off the air-fuel ratio. The engine computer compensates by dumping more fuel. Your fuel economy drops, your spark plugs foul faster, and eventually your catalytic converter gets clogged with unburned fuel. A catalytic converter replacement costs $2,000. An engine air filter costs $25. I've replaced blower motors on Corollas with 60,000 miles because the cabin filter was never changed. The motor windings were fried. Then I've serviced Priuses with 180,000 miles where the filters were changed on schedule. Everything still worked. Factory workers replace filters based on mileage, not appearance. Because by the time a filter looks bad, the damage to the expensive component has already started. Number 6. Spark plugs. Toyota says Iridium spark plugs last 120,000 miles. That's printed right in the service manual. Factory workers replace them at 60,000. Here's why: spark plugs don't suddenly stop working. They degrade gradually. The electrode wears down, the gap widens, the spark gets weaker. A weak spark means incomplete combustion. Incomplete combustion means unburned fuel in the exhaust. That fuel clogs the catalytic converter and fouls the oxygen sensors. I've replaced catalytic converters on Tacomas with 100,000 miles and original spark plugs. The converter was melted inside. The truck failed emissions. The repair cost $1,900. Then I've inspected Tundras with 200,000 miles where the plugs were changed at 60,000 and 120,000. The catalytic converters were clean. No codes, no issues. A set of spark plugs costs $80. A catalytic converter costs $2,000. Factory workers replace the plugs early, and they never replace catalytic converters. Toyota's engineering data shows that spark plugs should be replaced at 60,000 miles for optimal performance, but the marketing team pushed it to 120,000 because it sounds better. Factory workers ignore the marketing, they follow the engineering. Number 7. Tire rotation. Most people rotate tires when they remember. Factory workers rotate every 5,000 miles without exception. Here's what that does. Uneven tire wear doesn't just mean you replace tires sooner. It means the alignment is working harder to compensate. That wears out control arm bushings, ball joints, and tie rod ends. I've replaced ball joints on Highlanders with 70,000 miles and irregular tire wear. The joints were completely worn out. The repair cost $600. Then I've serviced Siennas with 150,000 miles and perfect rotation records. The suspension components were still tight. Tires cost $600 for a set whether you rotate them or not. But if you rotate them, they last 60,000 miles and your suspension stays intact. If you don't, they last 40,000 and you're replacing ball joints. Factory workers rotate at every oil change. And they don't replace suspension parts. Number 8. Differential fluid and transfer case fluid. If you own a 4-wheel drive Toyota, your owner's manual probably says differential and transfer case fluid is lifetime. Factory workers change both every 30,000 miles. Here's the reality. These fluids operate under extreme pressure and heat just like transmission fluid. They break down, they collect metal shavings from the gears, and when they degrade, the gears start wearing faster. I've rebuilt rear differentials on 4Runners with 100,000 miles and original fluid. The ring and pinion were scored, the bearings were pitted. The repair cost $2,200. Then I've inspected Sequoias with 250,000 miles and fluid changed every 30,000. The gears looked new. A differential service costs $140. A rebuild costs $2,200. Factory workers service theirs religiously. And they never rebuild differentials. Toyota doesn't advertise this service because most owners don't keep their trucks past 100,000 miles. By the time the differential fails, it's someone else's problem. But factory workers keep their trucks for 200,000 miles or more, so they change the fluid and the truck lasts. Number 9. Fuel system cleaning. This one surprises people. Most Toyota owners never clean their fuel injectors unless the check engine light comes on. Factory workers run fuel system cleaner through their tanks every 10,000 miles. Not the cheap stuff from the gas station. They use Toyota's genuine fuel system cleaner or Techron concentrate. Here's why it matters. Modern direct injection engines spray fuel directly into the combustion chamber at incredibly high pressure. Over time, carbon builds up on the intake valves and the injector tips. That carbon disrupts the spray pattern. When the spray pattern is off, you get incomplete combustion. That means rough idle, poor fuel economy, and eventually misfires. I've pulled intake manifolds off Camrys with 80,000 miles and carbon buildup so thick the valves barely opened. A walnut blasting service to clean that costs $500. Then I've scoped engines where the owner used fuel system cleaner every 10,000 miles. The valves were clean, no service needed. A bottle of Techron costs $12. Walnut blasting costs $500. Factory workers spend $12 every 10,000 miles, and they never pay for carbon cleaning. Dealerships don't recommend this because there's no warning light for carbon buildup. By the time you notice the problem, the service department has a profitable cleaning job. Factory workers prevent the buildup, so there's nothing to clean. Number 10. Battery terminal cleaning and inspection. Most people don't touch their battery until the car won't start. Factory workers clean and inspect the terminals every 6 months. Here's what that prevents. Corrosion on battery terminals creates resistance. Resistance means the alternator has to work harder to charge the battery. That burns out the alternator. A new alternator costs $600. Corrosion also means the starter gets inconsistent voltage. That burns out the starter. A new starter costs $400. I've replaced alternators on Priuses with 60,000 miles because the terminals were so corroded the charging system couldn't keep up. Then I've serviced Avalons with 180,000 miles where the owner cleaned the terminals twice a year. Original alternator, original starter, still working. A wire brush and terminal cleaner cost $8, an alternator costs $600. Factory workers spend 5 minutes twice a year, and they never replace alternators early. This isn't in any maintenance schedule because it's too simple to sell, but it's one of the most effective things you can do. Number 11, undercarriage wash. If you live anywhere with snow, salt, or road chemicals, factory workers wash the undercarriage of their Toyotas every 2 weeks during winter. Most owners never do it at all. Here's what happens when you don't. Road salt doesn't just sit on the surface. It gets into seams, bolt threads, and frame cavities. It corrodes from the inside out. I've seen Tundra frames with 100,000 miles that were rotted through. The truck had to be scrapped. Then I've seen Tacomas with 200,000 miles in the same climate with clean frames because the owner washed the undercarriage religiously. A frame replacement costs more than the truck is worth. An undercarriage wash costs $10. Factory workers in snowy regions wash the undercarriage obsessively, and their frames don't rot. Toyota had a frame recall on Tacomas and Tundras because of this exact issue. They know salt kills frames, but they don't tell you to wash it off. Factory workers don't wait to be told, they just do it. Number 12, serpentine belt and timing belt. Toyota says serpentine belts should be inspected and replaced as needed. Timing belts should be replaced at 100,000 miles. Factory workers replace serpentine belts at 60,000 miles and timing belts at 90,000 regardless of condition. Here's why. Belts don't show warning signs until they're about to fail. A serpentine belt that looks fine can snap without notice. When it snaps, your alternator stops charging, your power steering stops working, and your water pump stops circulating coolant. If you're on the highway, that's dangerous. If the engine overheats before you notice, that's a blown head gasket. A serpentine belt costs $40, a head gasket replacement costs $2,000. Timing belts are worse. If a timing belt snaps on an interference engine, the pistons hit the valves. That destroys the engine. I've seen Camry engines with 110,000 miles where the timing belt let go. The repair estimate was $7,500, total loss. Then I've seen Siennas with 250,000 miles where the belt was changed at 90,000 and 180,000. No issues. A timing belt service costs $600. An engine replacement costs $7,500. Factory workers replace belts early, and they never destroy engines. Toyota's official interval is based on average belt life, but factory workers don't gamble with averages. They replace before failure is possible. Number 13, suspension component inspection. Most owners don't look at suspension parts until something clunks or the alignment is off. Factory workers inspect ball joints, tie rod ends, and control arm bushings every 20,000 miles. Here's what early detection prevents. A worn ball joint doesn't just cause bad alignment. If it separates completely, you lose control of the wheel. I've seen Highlanders towed in because a ball joint failed on the highway. The wheel folded under the car. The repair cost $1,200 plus towing and a rental car. Then I've seen 4Runners with 200,000 miles where the owner caught a worn ball joint during inspection and replaced it for $200 before it failed. No tow, no rental, no danger. Factory workers don't wait for failure. They catch wear early when the repair is cheap and safe. A ball joint caught early costs $200. A ball joint that fails on the highway costs $1,200 plus whatever the tow and rental cost. Toyota doesn't require suspension inspection because it's labor-intensive and doesn't generate immediate service revenue. But factory workers inspect anyway, because they're the ones driving the car when something fails. Number 14, wheel bearing inspection and repacking. Most people don't know wheel bearings need service. Factory workers inspect them every 40,000 miles and repack them if needed. Here's why that matters. Wheel bearings support the entire weight of the vehicle while spinning at highway speeds. If the grease breaks down, the bearing overheats. An overheated bearing seizes. A seized bearing can lock the wheel or cause it to separate. I've seen a Sequoia come in on a flatbed because the front wheel bearing seized on the interstate. The rotor was glowing red. The brake caliper was destroyed. The hub was ruined. The repair cost $900 plus towing. Then I've serviced Tundras with 300,000 miles where the bearings were inspected and repacked regularly. Original bearings, no noise, no issues. A bearing inspection costs nothing if you're already doing brake service. Repacking costs $80. Replacing a seized bearing and damaged components costs $900. Factory workers inspect and maintain, and they don't replace bearings. Number 15, owner's manual cross-reference. Here's the most important thing Toyota factory workers do that almost no American owner does. They compare the American owner's manual maintenance schedule to the Japanese one, and they follow the Japanese intervals. You can find the Japanese maintenance schedule online. It's publicly available. When you compare them side by side, the difference is shocking. Oil changes are twice as frequent. Transmission services exist where the American manual says lifetime. Coolant, brake fluid, differential fluid, everything is shorter in Japan. Same car, different schedule. I've watched Toyota owners follow the American manual religiously and end up with transmission failure at 130,000 miles. Then I've watched others follow the Japanese schedule and hit 300,000 with zero major repairs. The only difference was the maintenance intervals. Factory workers are told directly during training that the Japanese schedule is the engineering standard. The American schedule is the marketing standard. One is designed to preserve the vehicle. One is designed to make ownership sound low maintenance. Factory workers ignore the marketing, they follow the engineering, and their cars last twice as long. Here's what this all comes down to. Japanese Toyota owners treat maintenance as an investment in longevity. American Toyota owners treat it as an expense to be minimized. That difference in mindset creates a difference in outcome. A Toyota maintained on the Japanese schedule will cost you about $800 a year in preventive maintenance. A Toyota maintained on the American schedule will cost you about $300 a year until something major fails. Then it costs $4,000 all at once. Over the life of the vehicle, the Japanese approach is cheaper and the car lasts longer. Factory workers know this because they see both outcomes every day. They watch coworkers skip services and replace transmissions. They watch other coworkers follow the strict schedule and drive the same car for 15 years. You have two choices now: maintain your Toyota like the people who built it do, or maintain it like the dealership wants you to and pay for repairs later. The first option costs more per year but less over the life of the car. The second option sounds cheaper until the transmission goes out. Factory workers choose the first option, and their Toyotas outlast everything else on the road. Drop a comment right now and tell me what mileage your Toyota is at and which of these 15 services you're adding to your routine. I read every single one. And in the next video I'm breaking down the one fluid that Toyota dealers are replacing wrong in almost every car that comes through the shop. It's causing engine damage and most owners have no idea it's happening. You don't want to miss it.